All right, we're live.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy, John Darko Chapman, and
Robert Waters.
yeah, this is the first show. So, this is all pretty new. So we probably won't have that many people on just yet, but hopefully more people will be on as time goes on. Hopefully people start entering the chat as times go on and so forth. So yeah, man. So it's the first show. Rob, tell them a little bit about yourself, and I'll do the same and kind of go from there. Excuse me, I'm an honorary alcoholic.
He's joining his alcohol, man. I got some coffee here. That's about it.
YouTube's already going to demonetize us. See that?
Man, apparently. So my name is Robert Waters. I'm a Pittsburgh photographer, digital artist. Have a background in computer animation, and I'm kind of the jack of all trades, man. I do a lot of different things. So, computer, a little bit of animation. I do video work, business video, corporate stuff, and a lot of photography. Like photography has been my main thing. I love creating art. I make stuff look cool. That is my biggest thing. Come on, man. The interruptions already. No. Already struggles for me. All good. So yeah, I work with a lot of people around the city, and a lot of businesses, things like that. So we decided that we were going to start a new podcast where we could help other people with their art, and that's been something we want to try and build up. And we appreciate everybody that's come through, and we thank you for giving us a chance. And hopefully we have something that's valuable to you guys.
Yeah. Keyword art. So, creative, I should say. That's why we decided to call it creative. We actually going to call it like the photo pit at first. But we cover way more than just photography. We've been doing this for a long time, me and Rob, different trades and so forth in the creative arts. I've done everything from production, engineering, music engineering, audio engineering, whatever you want to call it, video production, cinematography, photography, graphic design, everything. So we really want to kind of cover the gambit. The idea of this show is that we will bring on more and more interviews and people to talk to. It's mainly going to be an interview show. This isn't going to be just us. I think after a while we would get a little boring. And I just noticed that a lot of different platforms for photography, music, video, all this stuff, it's great to have the education and so forth, but I don't see a lot of like where you're hearing it from the horse's mouth. You're hearing from industry people that are in the industry and doing their thing and their take on stuff and so forth. So that's really going to be the heart of what we're going to do, is just a lot of interviews and bring on a lot of interesting guests. And yeah, man, talk about just what it is to be a creative and to be in the business of creatives. It ain't easy. Most definitely. I understand. We've both been doing this for a long time and we know how it is. Like myself, my name's John Darko Chapman. I'm from Philly. He's from Pittsburgh. We're both on PA, Pennsylvania side. But we're going to be interviewing people from all over, in all spectrums of the creative field, whether it's from music to video to photography to fashion. Actually, the first guest we're going to have on coming up soon, my boy Carl in Fashion, who is a big fashion photographer. So yeah, we'll have a little bit of it all and hopefully cover a lot of different gambits and hopefully bring in a lot of different people from a lot of different worlds and get a lot of perspectives from everything, from what it is to make it in the fashion industry, whether you're a photographer, whether you're a model, whether you're a designer, how to make it in the film industry, whether you're, a filmmaker, a cinematographer, a director, or actor, or whatever. So, we hope to cover the gambit and have a little bit of everything on here. And yeah, man, just keep going. So,
Nice.
we decided to do it this route. Me and Rob have done tutorials and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, editing sucks.
Yeah, we don't want to do any editing video afterwards, man. It's just too much time.
Yeah, he's like, man, let's just do this live. It's a lot easier for us to do. But honestly, I don't think there's been a live show where creatives just get on every week and talk.
No,
I don't think it's happened.
Not quite.
I think I've seen it here and there in different people's stuff, but not like on a consistent. So we're going to try and keep this as consistent as we can, guys. I know 100%. I've said that before, and but that's editing. So hopefully we can keep this a lot funner and liver and more just on the pace and good fun. So with that, we're just going to jump right into it. So every now and then we're going to do segments where we do kind of live tutorials where we'll bring on a guest, whether in the chat, maybe a comment they had, or somebody just had a really good question that they asked us, whether it's email, chat, so forth. Feel free to join us and feel free to subscribe and hit that like button. Say whatever you want in the chat. We will go back through and look through things later. And then from there, kind of see if anybody's got a question. Don't feel free anytime to ask any questions. We will prompt later down the show to ask any questions that you may have as far as anything in editing. And if you have any questions, and we'll do our best to answer. And hopefully if it's a good question or something that we go, okay, let's cover that. We'll bring you guys on a later date as we're getting ready to do with our man in a second. And we'll go over it and go from there. So we'll be doing some live tutorials. I don't think that gets done very often. So
yeah, we want to give some real-time help. So if you have questions, definitely join our Facebook group. We have the Cre8tive Pit at the Facebook. Join the group, ask questions in there, and we'll pick people every so often to bring onto the show, answer your questions real time, give some feedback, critique, whatever we can do to help you with your creative problems.
Yes, sir. And I saw a few people joined. So say something in the comments so I know y'all there.
Definitely.
So I saw Keo Arts. That's what's up, my man right there.
How's it going?
Talented photographer out of Philly. And I just saw Lisa Dean. Lisa Dean was actually a student of mine and a student of Josh Mills. And I met her through Josh and so forth. And we've been working ever since. Hopefully Josh tunes in at some point.
That's what's up.
So,
awesome, man.
Talk to you guys.
Good stuff. All right. So you want to go ahead and bring Dan on and we'll go from there? All right.
Cool. Hey guys, how you doing?
What's up, man?
Thumbs up.
So Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of give us your full name, background, so forth, and kind of what you're trying to grow in and all that in photography.
So Dan Fostel, I'm also from Pittsburgh. I probably only live a few miles from Robert over here. I've seen some of his work before, but never really figured out who he was or where he was. So that's kind of cool. It's like we obviously I met John on one of the photography forums online, and it's like, oh, you live in Philly, man, I'm right across the way. And then happens that Robert is like right next door to me. So that's kind of cool to just kind of meet some local people as well, even though you guys were saying, oh, we're gonna find people from all over it, and yeah, we're all Pennsylvania here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so,
we got to show some love for the state.
Yeah. So I'm in aviation. So I've spent my whole career, from day one, I wanted to be a pilot. I was going to be, flying airliners. That was the only answer. Things didn't work out. I ended up with air traffic control. But about 2 years ago, it started as a question, real simple question. Hey, my vacation pictures suck. What is it about what makes a good photograph? And this question has led to whole new camera systems and studio strobes, and now I have a studio and I built cyc walls, and then we're getting into, oh man, how do I create these beautiful photos? I'm looking at the work of like David Bird and these great compositors. Man, how do I do that? So it's been just a 2-year whirlwind of learning and trying to figure out how to create these pieces and how to really make these wow images. So that's kind of where I'm at. I started basically started about 2 years ago and really started getting more serious with it about a year ago.
Cool.
Okay. That's awesome.
If I may ask, when did you start like building your studio and all that? Because that's no easy task in itself.
This is actually pretty much our 1-year anniversary right now. I'd have to check the exact date on it, but I think it was right around like March 10th, March 13th of last year.
Cool.
So walked into this little empty hole of a building with no lights on, and was like, yeah, let's do this here.
Let's build it up. Nothing
wrong
with
that.
that.
it kind of started out, you're trying to shoot in a 10 by 10 living room. Yeah. And you're like, okay, I can hang a sheet up here and get a clean background. And then you start, okay, well, I need a strobe. And then you end up with 2 strobes and then 3 strobes. And you start realizing it's like, man, there's nowhere to walk. So that was the original goal, was just we needed space, and it grew into what it is now.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Square footage.
Man. Yeah, I've been there. I've definitely been there. I'm always interested to hear how people go about and getting to the studios and everything else and so forth, because that's really getting to the business side of it. And
right.
I've seen people, tackle that in all different ways, both good and bad and everything, including myself. Right. So yeah, I'm in a studio system with a bunch of other photographers as well, and it's definitely a good thing. But yeah, it can be a lot. But cool, man, cool. So yeah, so it's very interesting. You say you want to get into composite photography, composite work, so forth, graphic design. I guess I just say composite. I don't really consider composite work graphic design. Because it goes in a whole different direction.
Yeah, graphic design has a lot more to do with print. So it's different. I just call it digital art. Graphic design has a lot more to do with lettering, printing. Graphic design is like package creation, all that stuff. That's all graphic design.
Yeah, I mean, like, once again, it all falls kind of.
I mean, the skills transfer.
But artist. Yeah. But so we'll just jump right into it, because it's probably going to take a second just for that. Yeah, man. So we had talked a little bit earlier, for those of you tuning in and so forth, and Dan had shown me a few of his work. With the way I found Dan was he had one picture on it was one of the groups, one of those bigger groups that people, Facebook groups that people tend to be on, and he wasn't getting a lot of love for the picture. And I clicked on the picture and was like, what the fuck? Pardon my French. And I was just like, that's really, really good, man. And I was like, why are more people? And I was like, they don't even realize what they seen. They really don't. I was like, that's actually really, really good, man. And so, I complimented and so forth. We responded and kind of talked from there. And then what I kind of saw was, and what he responded on was something that Lord knows I've been through in my journey with all this, and still learning as I go on, which is being consistent with how you create the work and turn it over and all that kind of stuff, which is not easy. I completely get it. When I was first starting all this years ago and doing composite work and all that kind of stuff, and even, I guess you could say, some stuff in illustrating and coloring and comic books back in the day, and yada, yada, yada. And I would have all these happy accidents, right? And some pictures would come out amazing, and some pictures would be like, and you had to kind of learn and so forth. So yeah, it definitely is a journey and is a constant practice. It's an art and a science. The science is easy to learn the steps, and then the art of practicing to figure it out, train your eye, and all these other things. So yeah, man. So we're going to cover a little bit of that today. What Dan showed and what we're going to go over is a picture, and I guess I'll pull it up now. I'll share my screen. I hope everybody can see my screen. I have no idea. There we go.
Oh, yeah. Tunnel vision.
And pretty much, I'll just pull it up right in Photoshop. Please ignore my squeaky chair. I need a new chair. And the picture that Dan showed was this one, where he kind of started to take a subject and create. Matter of fact, I'll show a little bit of the beginning of the subject just so you can get an idea. And so forth. So it was interesting when Dan first showed me this picture and talked about it. One of the first things he talked about was how he shot this kind of dark, and he felt that he actually shot this a little too dark. Actually, that's not true. Believe it or not, when you shoot composite work, you actually want to shoot it dark. So that's kind of the first lesson for people to learn and so forth. If you actually want to shoot it darker than normal, and you want to shoot it lower light, lower exposure, things like that. And the reason being is that you want to create the shadows. All right. The reason being is because depending on how you're going to add your background, how you're going to add whatever you're going to add in the shot, you don't really know how that necessarily, well, let me rephrase that. If you really took your time and you really planned everything out and you did it correctly, let's just say somebody was paying you a lot of money to do it and you decided to do it correctly, then you would plan everything out to a T, which means that you would plan your background out, you would plan whatever you're creating, you'd plan all the different kind of stuff, and then you would shoot accordingly based on the light and the different colors and so forth that you formulated within the shot. And you would try and recreate that practically and then whatever, right? But let's be real, in a real world and serious where we're at and so forth and creative and everything else, you don't really have that. It doesn't always work out that way. So the safe bet is you actually shoot everything a little bit darker. And the reason being is because you're shooting digital. The one good thing about digital is you can always pull back the light. You can always pull back some of the different textures and lighting and things like that within the shot. And then what happens is it becomes a lot easier to paint in the shadows and so forth where you need it based off of whatever the background or environment or whatever you created, you know, dictates. So very much that's not a bad thing. I know a lot of people who start off and necessarily how they shoot things, and or more importantly, photographers that have been doing it for a long time. They tend to shoot very clean, very straight, whatever, so on and so forth. And then when I show them some of my pictures, they're like, "It looks like shit. You're not a good photographer." And I'll go, "Yeah, but you don't know what I'm doing." And then you know the end result. Yada yada. So
yeah, definitely for the most part, I would normally, like you said, this would be, you know, weeks of preparation and, you know, planning costumes and, you know, looking at mood boards and trying to plan this all out. And on this particular set, she told me like 2 days before, it's like, "Hey, let's do this on Sunday." So it was a mad scramble to try to figure out, you know, the direction and what we wanted to do with it real fast. So it very much so a scramble, and then trying to figure out where I wanted to go with the pictures after the fact is not part of the normal process.
Yeah, I feel you.
No, that definitely makes sense.
To be perfectly honest, I ain't even gonna lie to you. Somebody else might say whatever and try to look all proper. Fuck that.
90% of what I do, I come up with on the spot. Like I all, I never planned for it. But
go
ahead. I was gonna say.
You go.
The more you can plan for something ahead of time, you know, of course, the better the end result's going to be. But what I find with the way that I light things is I try to light in a way that allows me to move those colors, those shadows, those darks around any way that I want to later on. So I tend to not show as many. Well, I actually love shadows, but the way that I shoot, it's usually a little bit more flat. So that's where I end up being. And actually something John had taught me a long time ago is in post flattening things out so you can mess with the shadows and stuff later on. So yeah. I'm gonna keep it 100. Pretty much all the creative stuff that I do, anything that you see, just me playing around on, like, you know, Instagram or stuff I post on social media or whatever, like some of the stuff that's on there now. And a lot of that stuff is just me kind of playing around and like creating stuff. Unless a client's paying me a lot of money, I don't prep much of anything. I usually I have an idea, a vision of what I want to do. I'll tell the model, whatever, show up. I usually have a ton of stuff I bring and yada yada. We set up whatever we want to set up. I shoot it. I have no idea how it's going to turn out in the end. I got no idea what the hell I'm doing, and I just do it. And then, you know, I have, thank God, at least enough somewhat of experience. I still got a long way to go. Shout out to hopefully Casey or anybody else who's watching. We all still got a long way to go in this. Trust me. 100%.
There's so many people so much better than
I 100% do not know all the answers.
For real. And you know, but we take what we know and try and create something awesome. And sometimes that's the fun in it as well. You know what I mean? So don't think for one instance that everything I shoot or whoever or a lot of these people you see is all planned out. No, it's not. No, it's
not even close.
I can guarantee you. Especially a lot of guys you see that, like, I forget some of their names, but like they shoot at like comic book conventions and stuff, and then they go back and do cool stuff later and so forth. They ain't playing.
Yeah, they make it up later.
They figure it out later.
Fire, and figure it out.
Yep.
So it's just kind of understanding the fundamentals and understanding the main core things of what you need, and then kind of working your way back from there.
Exactly. From there. Once you learn the tools, you can apply them easier. So you have your steps, and you kind of go through the same steps every time, and you can use those things however you want in different situations. So yeah, 100%.
And then the biggest thing I say is fundamentals, which we're getting ready to go over in a second, at least a piece of it. Just learning the fundamentals of certain things within the functions of Photoshop, functions of programs like this, as well as just the theory of why you're doing what you're doing and why it's necessary and why it works. Kind of
100%.
The more you understand that, a lot of the more this easier it becomes. Not to knock on any YouTube guys or tutorials or anybody that's got teaching stuff that's out there, whatever. But a lot of times, a lot of the tutorials and teaching stuff, especially like the YouTube tutorials, and I don't knock them because I've been in that space myself of trying to create tutorials here and there. And one of the biggest things that happens with tutorials, I'm not going to try and digress too long. We'll get into this. But what tends to happen a lot of times is you're kind of strapped for time because you don't want to make the video too long to where it's boring. You want a lot of people to tune in, yada, yada, yada. So you're crunching to try and explain something a lot of times that takes a lot longer to explain in a shorter period of time. And so, because of that, you're either cutting corners or you're cutting things short, so on and so forth, and how you're explaining. And so because of that, it's just like it becomes this step-by-step, do this, do this, do that, do this, do this, and you're done. And then what happens is the person tries to go back and apply that to whatever they're doing, and they shoot the subject the same way, whatever, and it doesn't work.
Would you say I got to turn this up to 23 or 25? Which yeah,
exactly.
And I think that's how the post that you actually found me on first was one of the first times I've tried to make one of these YouTube, speed art type things to try to show the process. Because again, like you mentioned, you can spend 6 to 8 hours on this piece, and what happens to it? It ends up on Instagram. Oh, that's nice, and scroll past. So the part of that is just to show the process, show the the amount of work and creativity that went into these pieces. That's so that's part of why you try to get into this more video and behind the scenes type thing. So it becomes more than just pretty picture, scroll on for the audience.
Exactly. Definitely. Let alone once again, if you don't know really where to go, you don't understand the theory and so forth, you spend hours and hours and hours and hours working on something, trying to get it right, trying to do what you think you can, and so on and so forth. And you think you got something, and then you put it out, and you see other people's work, and you're like, God damn, it's back to the drawing board. So I've been there. Trust me, I've been there. So yeah, so the biggest thing we're going to talk about today is and what we had talked about a little bit beforehand, Dan, was that you got kind of this streak of fire, which is really cool, and how you created this, and you did this from scratch, right?
Yeah, that was using the pen tool and then using the Photoshop's internal fire render feature.
Nice.
So it's the first time we kind of play with that. The whole goal with this shot is, I'm getting better with smoke, just taking a piece of smoke, putting it in, coloring it, moving around. I'm trying to, the point of this series is we're trying to learn more to work with different types of effects. So work with lightning effects, work with fire, work with, some arcane swirl type things. So that was kind of the learning that we were trying to do with this series. And that's where the flame came from is, okay, how do we, Dave's on. Very cool. Reality reimagined there.
Yeah, man. He's good.
There goes that ringtone.
I love Dave. He's a great guy.
See, it was my turn to do it. Oh, did you stop sharing your screen?
I did for a second. All right.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we got to that piece. Is I'm trying to integrate new styles and new effects into the pieces.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's actually that's an effect I've never played with. So
I was about to say the same thing. I haven't even played with that yet.
Never touched that before.
So yeah,
that's awesome.
They keep coming up.
There's so many things in there. That's the cool thing about Photoshop, man. It's such a deep program.
Don't call it cool. Don't call that shit cool. That's called in a couple years, real talk, bro. It's gonna be a mofo take a picture on the phone
and can do
whatever
it all.
Doing we all out of a job.
Listen, man, like Lightroom has almost put us out of. Yep, Lightroom's almost put us out of skin retouching. I mean, it's just slider.
Bruh,
it's pretty much done.
Artificial intelligence is getting crazy, bro.
It's getting crazy. It's
let alone the computers is going to hit you back like that is a hot meth. Let me do it.
Well, they're going to give you a tutorial.
Metahuman stuff comes in and starts replacing models.
See,
you know, Epic's working hard on that metahuman stuff.
Oh my goodness,
that'll get interesting.
If the only thing that saves us from that
that'll take down a lot of egos and thoughts. Did I say that out
loud? when they figure out how to make people's faces move realistically, it's going to be a problem. Like,
they're close. They're very close.
It's getting close. With what they did in Star Wars and all of that, it's getting close.
It's all coming. It's terrible. Yep. It's really just going to be boiled down to your creativity. Like
100%.
If you're super creative and whatever within whatever you're working with, you'll last. Yeah. If not, adios. That's why it's like I don't knock a lot of times, and then I'm digressing, but this is the last thing I'll say. I don't knock a lot of times when I see somebody who, you know, what's funny too is I'm keeping it real, like a lot of female photographers, female designers, female whatever creatives. A lot of times don't get super into the technical side of it. Sometimes when they should, but they'll just have that eye. They'll just have whatever, to just go with it, whatever, so on and so forth, and be creating really interesting stuff. And it's just because they see their eye, and you know, it might be all kinds of off technical and like that's not that great, but because of overall what they did, it's like, okay, that's kind of fire. You know what I mean? And
yep. Oh, I mean, great examples of that are people who don't really care about like settings on that. Andy Leibovitz is like that. Sue Bryce is like that. I mean, it's just not about the settings and stuff. They just make dope art, and it's just good stuff. And they just crank the knobs until they get it, and it's like I can see it now, and it's good. So
yeah. So I don't hate on creativity, man, but you still need to know the fundamentals.
I'm a fundamentals guy. So yeah.
So let's get into it real quick. Shout out who we got here. We got Lisa. How you doing, Lisa? Reality Remained. Who is that? That's
Reality Reimagined. That's Dave.
Keo, what's up, Kev, man? What's going on? And we'll get some more people in here eventually. Hold up. Where's all my people? Where's Greg? Where's Ed? They gonna get cussed out tomorrow. That's all right.
Right?
But all right. So let's get into it.
So we bring
all right. So the biggest thing we're going to go over today, of course, once again, there's so much to go over when it comes to composite work and all that kind of stuff. Excuse me. No way we can tackle everything in one day, but the biggest thing we're going to tackle today is how to get basically the light on the subject, which you see here. All right. So for instance, we have the fire here, right? So before I even get into that, let me say this, because this, once again, this goes a little bit into fundamentals. When you know what? I'll just keep it simple. My art teacher used to say this to me back in the day. This is back like when I was a kid, literally like 16, 17 years old. I had a very talented art music teacher who became very famous for teaching and all the blah, 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 blah. Miss Starr. Rest in peace, Miss Starr. Anyway, point is that she used to always say this when it came to certain things in pictures and how to make pictures really look alive and look kind of realistic, especially when you dealt with fire, you dealt with light, you dealt with certain things. Light lights make dark darks, and dark darks make light lights. So everybody get that? I'm going to repeat that. This is a very like old school art thing. Light lights make dark darks, and dark darks make light lights. She used to say that to us all the time. And what that means is, so because you have this fire here, right? This is a very light light, right? So if it's a light light against the subject's going to be actually what? I just said it. Dark, dark, right? So believe it or not, however a light source hits against a subject, whether in front of the subject or behind the subject, will affect the subject more intensely, right? So if this light was behind the subject, right? We've all kind of shot somebody behind the sun. What happens?
They get super underexposed, right?
They get super dark, right?
Right.
Light lights make dark darks, right? and then darks make light. So like I just always remember that theory, try and keep that theory in your head, and the more you kind of remember that, the more and more it's going to be a little bit easier to do this. So because this light is so bright and so close to her, it's going to actually make more of certain things very light and certain things very dark. All right. Now, because the way you shot it, she's actually lighter on the other side and dark is always backwards. And hey, it is what it is, but we can fix that. So what I'm going to do is show just a couple things in a combination of, I guess you could say, I don't even really think this is a word, but I'm making it up right now. Light theory. There's color theory. I don't think there's a light theory. Well, I'm going to say light theory. And the other side of it is how to just basically paint light, how to understand where light goes in painting light. Okay, so very simple. Now you have a lot of different things that you did here. We're not going to cover a lot of this today and so forth because, well, this is a lot. And honestly, it doesn't matter because this is a very simple technique to learn. All right, somebody got cars and stuff in the background.
Yeah, it's my highway.
So what we're going to do real quick is I'm actually just going to literally merge up. All right, so for those of you who don't know, if I can merge up, probably got to take this off. Get out of here. Cancel.
Yeah, that concept of kind of moving the light around. I know it's something that people have told me in the past, and I tried to do it on this one. As we can see, there's a little bit of red on the top of her shoulders, but it just wasn't, and especially in the hair, it just wasn't catching that color the way I was hoping.
Yeah, so if I may ask before we even start, just because I think it's good to understand the process and how people figure things out, and then kind of understanding the technique from there. So what were some of the techniques that you tried to do to try and get the light from the fire to bounce off of her?
If you scroll down in the layer stack, maybe about halfway through, you'll see a paint layer. Where's that at? Flare. There it is. A little bit lower.
Flare here. Color
down two more. There it is. So paint, highlight, glow. So I literally pulled a sample, a 5x5 sample of the flare color. And then I'm not sure, looks like I used a hard light blending mode, and I was just trying to paint those colors onto the model and then clipped it to the model layer so it wouldn't affect the background.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're actually this is why I asked that question, because you're actually very, very close to how you would do this. You're actually super close to how you would do this.
Now, the interesting thing is I did apparently knock that down to 30%, which means I wanted to knock it down for some reason. There's probably merged layers above it, so that's why we can't see the effect.
Let me see. Hold on 1 second.
Okay. It's probably just because it was a terrible job painting in the highlights, and I knocked that down.
I got you. Okay. All right. So you're actually very, very close to how you would do this technique. So basically, how you would do this technique runs the same way. The only difference is instead of using a blank layer and trying to paint in the paint, instead I'm going to use Hue Saturation. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing you did, which is create a clipping mask. For those of you watching, you're going to hit Control. If you're on a Mac, you're going to right click. If you're on a PC, create clipping mask, and then all I'm going to do is hit this little button right here that says Colorize, and you see what happens. It puts the color of whatever color that's on the bars, so to speak, or whatever, the lines, on the entire picture, right? I'm going to right click, and well, it's already on a clipping mask, and keep it on the clipping mask. Now, you do need to cut out the subject to do this technically to make it work a little bit better. Thank God that Photoshop makes this a whole lot easier these days, and I don't got to use a whole pen tool and all that stuff. So I'm just going to collect on quick selection tool. I'm going to hit select subject mask, and it should cut her out somewhat decent. Now, here's the thing. The cutout doesn't even have to be perfect, because the cutout that I'm looking for is just enough to go over her shoulder here where the fire is, over to her hair, and a little bit over here. It did that kind of perfectly, so I'm good. So make sure that you're still on the select subject tool. We're going to right click or Control if you're on a PC. and we're going to hit layer VIA copy. And it's just so we separate the layer so she's by herself. All right. After we do that, we're then going to apply that same clipping mask, which is using the Hue Saturation, the selective tool. I'm sorry, not a selective tool. Help me out, Rob. I'm bad with names.
You're trying to do
Hue Saturation select tool, whatever. It's not the name.
You're trying to pick a color. I got you. The eyedropper.
No, goddamn, whatever. It's gonna go to be like. I'm so terrible with some of the names for stuff. Not a selected tool. It doesn't matter. Point is, come to this bottom option you see here where it looks like a half moon. You click on that. It gives you all the options for the different select tools. In the select tool, you're going to pick Hue Saturation. From Hue Saturation, you'll right click.
Adjustment layers.
Thank you. So bad with names sometimes. Adjustment layers. Then you're going to click on clipping mask. And you'll see this little arrow pointing down to the layer. That means that it's only affecting that layer and nothing else. All right.
Oh,
and because
real quick.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say real quick, just a shortcut for that. You can if you put your mouse right in between and hold Alt, that'll you click right in between. It'll create a clipping mask too.
What he said too. All right. So that's pretty much how you do it. So from there, very simple. All we're going to do is double click on the tool itself, the Hue Saturation, which brings up this option. We clicked on Colorize, which means it's going to color the subject whatever color that you have on the slider. And so this color is red, well, like a orangey red or whatever. We'll kind of slide it over to, I guess, kind of an orangey red in the middle. And then we'll take the saturation up. Once the saturation is up, we can see it's a little off. Figure it out. About right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that look good? Or a little further over? There we go. All right. And then from the lightness, you can turn it down. Dark, you can turn it up. Really doesn't matter. We'll kind of figure out where we need it and then adjust it later. Let's just make it a little brighter, whatever, right there. Okay. As soon as we do that, now when you click on any adjustment layer, it automatically creates a separate layer mask. We're going to click on that layer mask, and you're going to hit, if you're on a Mac, you're going to hit Command I. If you're on a PC, it's probably going to be Control I. Okay.
It's either Control or Alt, probably Alt I.
Yeah, one of the other controller.
Control, I think. See? On PC.
To invert. All right, and then you invert the mask, or you can just right click on the mask. I'm sorry, be on the mask. You can go to Image, Adjustments, and Invert. Same thing. And you see it has the option right here that shows you it's Control I or Command I if you're on a PC or Mac. Okay, so once that's clicked, you're going to go to Brush. You can click B for Brush. Or you can go over here to this option and it's going to bring you on brush. Okay. Once you're on brush, we're going to take the flow of the brush down to like 3 to 4 to 5%. You can kind of have it wherever you want. Doesn't matter. The flow means the density of the brush, right? Meaning how much pressure is on the brush. We're going to keep the pressure a little low.
Let me, I want to expand on flow because flow and opacity, people get mixed up a lot. So with opacity, every time you do a brush stroke, it keeps everything the same opacity. So no matter how many times you go over that brush stroke, it'll only ever get to 10% opacity.
Correct.
With flow, every time you go over the brush stroke, it adds another 10%. So if you go over the same spot 10 times, you'll have 100% opacity. So that's the difference between flow and opacity. Flow is really good for if you're blending things together.
Yes, sir. So with a lot of stuff in composite work, you're going to be using flow a lot. So once the mask is on the invert, which is black, you always want to have whatever you're functioning in the mask, you want it to be on the opposite color, which is going to be white in this case. So I'm just making it more brighter, right? So you see these little options right here. This is another little shortcut. Now you can do it right here if you're on color in your window here, or you can go down to these little swatches here. You see black and white. Notice if I hit X, it switches back and forth between black and white, between those two panels. You can make those panels whatever color you want, but you can use X to switch back and forth. It's just an easy way to switch colors and keep working. All right. So I switched the white, which means anything we paint in the black is going to expose. Okay. So from here, I'm going to make my brush really small, not too small. And then all I'm going to do now, because the fire is covering most of her skin, Dan actually got it right. If you notice, you'll see all the red that he painted in all around her arm here, which is exactly where the fire would reflect over her skin. Skin on a human being is very weird because it's a combination of translucent and reflective. All right. So all I'm going to do is then paint in pretty much right over what Dan did. Now, that looks a little weird. It's a little light. It's kind of the wrong color. That's fine. All we're going to do is click back onto the hue saturation adjustment layer. And then we're just going to play a little bit with the color how we want. And then I'm just going to brighten it up. And we see what happens right there, boys and girls. And then from there, I'm just going to kind of continue the same. And I'm going to paint in over to her hair. And when you're on flow and you're on a low percentage, notice how I'm kind of scribbling back and forth. The scribbling back and forth, the more that I'm adding back and forth, the more pressure it's giving to give the effect that I want. That's why it's so important to use flow kind of in between when you're going. And there you go. So we'll kind of play around a little bit more with the color, just kind of get it where we want it.
And while he's doing that, this is something that takes a lot of practice to kind of get right, because you have to imagine if the light source was real, where is it going to hit on the model? So you can see where your light source is, where the strobe or the flash hit. You can see how it's shaping all of the stuff that's in the image. So the more detailed you get with this, the more shape and volume you're going to end up giving your model or your subject while you're doing this, and it's going to make it look more realistic. The more the more you pay attention to that.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, one of the main things with compositing, like one of the most important things with compositing, is understanding that light direction. Once you understand that and you can get a good feel of it, it's the things that we did in art class when we were kids, where they had a shade, a ball, a ball, a cone, and a cylinder. Understanding that well will help you understand how to or where to put the light when you're doing this. So.
And once again, another reason why, Dan, you actually did well with shooting it dark, because the interesting thing is when you're painting in the light like this and painting in this color, it actually absorbs better on the dark.
Right.
So
yeah.
notice how
can't add color to bright spots.
Exactly.
Give them a shadow.
So because of those shadows you created, notice how I'm able to put that around her arm a little better and so forth. All right. And kind of there you go. So from there, once again, you can just go right back into the adjustment. I'll just kind of play with it a bit, and blah, 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 bang, bang, and there you go. All right.
Yeah, and Robert there mentioned the depth of the picture. I think that was one of the big things that I was kind of not feeling on this shot, was because when you first got it, you noticed that everything looked very flat. Despite the kind of side lighting on her face. I think the way the rim light, it just, everything looked very flat on the model, and it was just lacking that dimension to it.
So a lot of that's because it's bright. It's very you shot everything. Well, you shot it dark, but you shot everything kind of standard and straight, and then you brought it out kind of bright. So we're not going to go back from the beginning of what you did with everything. But what I'll do is I'll show you one kind of trick with that. I'm just trying to get this, because the color of this flame is very interesting.
It's a two-tone type of deal.
No, it's like almost a pink. There we go. When I went over here to more red and pinkish and purple. There we go. Now I feel good about life.
Doesn't have to be perfect, John.
Exactly. So you get the idea, though. That's kind of how it goes. And then here's another little trick too. That now, once again, sometimes the darks is good because you can paint over them good, but sometimes it's good to see the highlights, because if I just like zoom in here, the highlights of her hair, I'm going to turn the pressure up the flow just a little bit, actually becomes the reflecting points that you need to draw on, to where the light is bouncing off, because where those light spots on her hair is actually where the light is actually bouncing off the hair. Make sense?
Yeah.
And so forth. So you pull back and so on. And then, you know, we can do some extra things here. Like we can turn the opacity down on it a little bit till we get it where we want it, wherever that may be. Let's just say 50. Whatever, or you can double click on the subject, and we'll talk more about this on another thing. But basically, we have this option of blend if. Blend if you're going to hear a whole lot about when it comes to composite work and certain things in editing. You notice in these tools, you'll see these different sliders, and you see these sliders have lines on them. On a Mac, if you hold Option and you click within the slider, you can separate the slider, and what it does is it just kind of what is called blend if. It blends in what you're doing with that subject just a little, well, the color or whatever you're working on, a little bit more into the main picture. And it just does that very interesting and naturally. That gives it a unique look.
Another thing I like to do with this too, because a lot of times the highlights, getting it really bright, because you see how bright the white is in the middle of the flame. So to kind of amp up the highlights a little bit, what I do oftentimes is add an exposure adjustment layer. And I leave this, you know, the way it is, but add an exposure adjustment layer and put a mask on it. And you can, it's a little bit more natural type of highlight. So you can add some kind of specularity to the highlights there.
Gotcha.
It brings it up a little bit more, just so you can really you can amp up those lights and darks.
Matter of fact, we'll do that right now. I'll add an exposure adjustment layer. We'll take the exposure itself, push it just a little bit. Same thing. Command I, Control I if you're on a PC. Brush. Let's right click if you're on a PC, Control if you're on a Mac, and we'll create another clipping mask. And same deal, make sure that the paintbrush is on the opposite color of the mask. And I agree. Oopsie.
And it really,
I actually can turn up the flow, turn it up all the way. And we'll just, oopsie, don't leave it there. We'll kind of paint that in there, a little bit in there, just around the highlights. Now, once again, a lot of this, you do need to understand a little bit of shading, a little bit of like color theory, darks and lights. This is going back to like early art school and, you know, so forth, drawing the squash. Or why do they always have a squash? You ever notice that?
it's the gourd. Yeah, like this, it's easy to, it's just an organic shape that's not normal. It's not a sphere, but it's not a cylinder. It's not a cone. So you have to mess around with it to shade it.
So they say. That's all I'm saying. So, and there you go. And kind of same deal. So that's pretty much how you would go about in painting in highlights of a subject and so forth. Now, let's just say we're going to say a little pretend here, because if you look at go back to the original picture that Dan had, he actually shot it pretty dark. So because of this, we would kind of work more straight off of this. Dan went a little bit brighter. That's okay. Let's just say for hypothetical reasons that he actually shot it this bright, which would be the normal of what most photographers would shoot it like, right? They would shoot it just clean and bright and what it needs to be and so forth. You see everything, blah, blah, blah. All right. So let's say you shot it like that and somehow you still needed to bring in darkness to it, right? There's a lot of different ways to do it. I'm going to show you one technique that I like to use a lot. It's just kind of a cheat code, I feel, that I've used for doing this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the cutout that we did. I'm going to duplicate the cutout. I'm going to go to filter and I'm going to go to camera raw. All right. I guess for one reason you couldn't do this back in the day, because the early Photoshop when Camera Raw first started, Camera Raw wasn't a filter, so you couldn't go back into Camera Raw. But now you can. But anyway.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Yeah. So basically, I go to Camera Raw, I go down to Effects, and I go to Vignette. And I'm going to literally just make the vignette as dark as it goes. I'm just going to put a whole vignette around her and see what it did. It created almost a natural lighting source around her. I'm going to hit OK. All right. I'm going to create the mask, duplicate the mask. Let's take the opacity back a little bit because it's a little too dark. And then all I'm going to do is just literally, once again, make sure the brush is on the opposite color of the mask. And I'm going to paint in the mask.
That's
and
dope.
Once again, just hitting the spots where we want the darks. Remember, the light's right here, so most of the light source is coming from here. And we're just going to darken. Around. See that? So that's a little trick you can use to kind of paint in light source. Now, I would usually do this more at the beginning. Usually it's one of like the beginning steps that I do. If I have to do it in the first place, hopefully you kind of shot it where the light source is a little bit more natural where it needs to be, but it doesn't always go according to plan that way. So if that's the case, this is kind of where I would use this little cheat to paint in where things need to be. And then as I go, I'm scroll down here, you see these different layers. As I start adding layers and adding color grades and so forth, it'll kind of do the rest. And I don't have to worry about the darks and lights no more because I did it early on in the phase. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
No, that's actually awesome because I've not used that technique before, so that's really cool.
Yeah, and what I'm sorry, go ahead.
Usually what I would do is a curves adjustment layer, so 2 curves adjustment layers, a dark one and a light one, and just do kind of like dodge and burn. But this is a really I like this.
Exactly. Like, and once again, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can use curves, you can use levels, you can use a lot of different ways to paint it all in. I just like using the vignette way because the vignette is going to give kind of like a more circular, more natural impression around the subject. And so then when you start to kind of paint in, you get a better especially if you don't really fully understand shading, it'll give you a more natural approach to where the shading should be. Does that make sense? Yeah. So there you go. But yeah, so those are some of kind of the quick techniques you would use. And then once again,
another thing you can also do, something that I like to do is just get a soft brush and kind of paint some color over top of it on a blank layer and screen it. It kind of gives a little bit of a glow effect. Makes it look
I've watched a lot of your you do a lot of the neon work. The way you can just push, obviously. So I knew it was possible because you guys do this with the artificial neon all the time. And that's actually I actually may have grabbed some of your photos as things that I want to work in before I even knew who you were. I'm like, oh yeah, this guy, this Graphlight guy doing these cool neon shots. So
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
100%.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, that's for the most part how you would go about in just really kind of painting in some of the light and so forth. Once again, this is just one step of many that we would take towards some of this. But just to give you guys a little bit of just kind of hint and so forth to how I go about it. And here's the deal, just kind of in what you're seeing, because you see that Dan did all these steps before. I wouldn't do a lot of the like painting in light and all that kind of stuff until the end. It is actually one of the last steps that I do. It's not one of the first steps or the beginning. I see some people that do it in the beginning, but what happens is it all depends on how you edit a little bit. Because I'm kind of crazy with color grades and stuff, it just start getting way too dark, and then I'll end up having to do it again later. So it's like, why would I repeat the step and just do it at the end when I got a better sense of where the darks and the lights are going?
It's interesting. I
backed it in. Oh, sorry. I think I backed it into that model layer because the masks were already there, versus having to dragging the mask back up. It was I knew I wanted it to apply to the model, so I just kind of painted in there just to be in that mask and be able to clip it right to the model layer.
Gotcha. So yeah, that's a lot of how. One thing, if you're going to merge this stuff, let's say, like, for instance, I want to merge this shadow of what I did with her. If you have clipping mask on, the clipping mask is going to respond to that. So I'm actually going to click the clipping mask off for a second, release clipping mask, merge her, and then click the clipping mask back on. And there we go. So it's a little bit there. I was wondering why stuff was looking a little too bright. A little more shallow, I should say. Now I know why. And there you go. So that's kind of a little bit of how you start to kind of paint in light and kind of get a better understanding of where the light should go and how the person should go. And then once again, just remember, I know it sounds really simple and kind of almost kiddish. I guess I learned it when I was a kid, but it stuck with me. Dark darks make light lights, and light lights make dark darks. And if you remember that, you remember where you place fire, where you replace I don't know, freaking lightsaber or whatever it is that you're creating. If you got something really bright, it's going to make a really dark, and vice versa. You got a really dark against something very bright, it's going to do the opposite. So kind of always remember that and where to play with that, and it'll give you a really good idea of where to put things. And yeah, that's about it, man.
Yeah. And what I would say, just for anybody doing, doing composites in general, there's probably about 5 or 6 things that you want to deal with and that you want to think about to get a better composite. One of them, of course, is what we went over today is, making sure that your light direction is correct, making sure that everything is correct light wise. After that, making sure that your perspective is right. So depending on the environment that you place them into, you want to make sure that the subject that you're placing, same perspective as the environment that you're placing it into. Exposure, which, is part of the light. Making sure that the colors match between the darks and the background and the subject. So I did see, I was looking at your layers, and it looks like you had a layer on there for the color check. The color check layer is good. It's something that I use. I would recommend that you use the color balance tool when you're using that color check. To match the background color with the foreground color with your subject, because that's going to be helpful for you. And then lastly, what was it? The focal length. Something that people don't take into account is the focal length of your image. So if your background is shot at like a wide 35 mil or like a wide 17 millimeter, and you get it all up close on the model, and she was shot at 100 millimeters, there's something that kind of makes it look odd to the eye. So you want to think about all those things when you're shooting.
Yeah, I've been to ask that, and we'll not touch too much on that because we'll kind of move on from there. But
yeah,
Dan, when you added this background looks like it's like a starry night, and then this is an ocean, correct?
Sure. So that one was it was Adobe stock there, so
yeah,
it was just basically looking for more of that swirl, because I was originally doing this planning with just those arcane swirls. I was actually watching one of David Bird's pieces, and I was trying to mimic that fire just swirl in the background, and I was unable. Gotcha. So I brought this in just for that, a little bit of character and a little bit of texture in the background.
Gotcha.
Now, and that's why I knocked it all the way down, because I wasn't that interested in the background itself.
Gotcha. If I may ask, Dan, did you? I'm assuming you started working on collecting a lot of different brushes and stuff that mimic these types of swirls or flames or whatever it is you're going for, right?
So brushes, that is one thing I admit is a weakness in my life. So just organizing brushes, understanding how, I've got a few brushes, but understanding which ones, like I have a few that do like irises or maybe some little fog brush, but I've never really gotten good at painting. So I'm not an artist. I don't consider myself an artist. As far as me having to actually draw something in, that's like my nightmare.
Gotcha.
So okay. I tend to avoid brushes in general, but I understand that that's a lot of where we have to go with this.
I got you. No, same beat. I'm lazy as hell, so I don't like painting and doing this stuff from scratch, let alone creating brushes from scratch. I've done a few.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I've done a few, but like I'm like, yeah, no. So I'm gonna give you a little cheat code right here. Just a little bit for everybody. I guess this is a little shout out to it, and kind of showing you guys painting light. This is what I mean a little bit. This is actually one I did for a client not too long ago. You see the difference of darks make light lights. Because these lights are very bright, it made everything else dark, right? Yeah. And you see kind of where the subject is and so forth, and the car and how dark it is. And honestly, I probably need to make her more darker. I'm trying to make her pop a little bit because she's the subject, but I'll probably going to start going in and painting her a little bit more darker. All right. Anytime that you got a light, it's going to make everything else around it dark.
Right. And yeah, I know we mentioned that I felt like, instinctually, my primitive brain was saying, just brighten it up. And, obviously that doesn't work because then it just pushes to clipping. And so the dark and moody has always been a challenge for me as far as, because I always want to make I started, the first photographs I did were, glamour. I was looking at like Joel Grimes type stuff, edge lighting, point lighting work. So going from that, where okay, everything's beautiful, everything's got this beauty dish, and all lit correctly. I've always had trouble going back towards the dark and moody side.
Gotcha. So real quick, we're not sponsored, Bob, but we'll see.
Brush Easy.
Brush Easy. I use them all the time. Brush Easy. There's a lot of other sites. You can even go to Rob, what's the joint back in the day?
There's 1,000 brushes. You can go to Envato, you can get brushes. You can go to Deviantart and get brushes. They're all over the place.
Brush Easy has a lot of free brushes. That's one reason I like using them. And pretty much you can type in anything. So let me put feather, whatever. All right. Bunch of feather brushes. Anything, cloud, right? Anything you could think of where you would want to brush to paint in something so it looks somewhere realistic. They got tons. So this is a really cool site. They have a lot of free stuff. Some stuff is paid for, yada, yada, but they have a lot of free stuff. I was very surprised. You can even go to Deviantart. So if you put in Deviantart, if you try and search Deviantart, that gets
I would not recommend going to Deviantart on stream.
Yeah, so but
I would not recommend that.
I got you, but like a lot of people on there create brushes and stuff. If you kind of just search some stuff, you'll come up with things. But so those are some of the stuff that you can go on and definitely find a lot of stuff that you're looking for and so forth. So I'm sorry.
Do you mind showing real quick how you organize, and when you have your like 200 brushes that you like and do different things for you? So how would you go about organizing and choosing a brush to use for a particular task?
Gotcha. So I'm not that sophisticated with it. I know some people I'm not that organized. And I'm on actually another computer that I don't do most of my editing on. So I probably don't have all my brushes. I have only a few in here. So here's just a few brushes. Oh, I'm sorry, it's actions actually. I'm sorry. Fonts, color grade.
Very bottom there.
So yeah, you see, I only got a few in here. This isn't the main computer that I do most of my editing on. I usually use I got a 27-inch iMac, all that bigger screen and so forth. I'm on my little laptop right now. So there's just a few brushes in here, but basically I don't do nothing special. I just make a folder called brushes and I just dump them in. And the reason being is because once I right click and choose on the wheel and import brushes, I'm just going to import them. And as I import them, it lists them for you. You don't really have an option so much in how you can list them. It's just going to it plops the next one in, the next one in, the next one in. So I just have whatever's in here loaded and kind of go from there.
So like when you look at the fur brush there, and it's obviously in the way it's demonstrating the stroke, it just layers them right on top of each other.
Mm-hmm. So I don't get too crazy with everything with the stroke and how much pressure and all that kind of stuff. I don't really worry about that. I keep everything flat. You see, I got smoothing on. I don't even want that on. So if you notice on my brushes and the pressure, scattering, texture, all that, I leave everything blank. The reason being is because I want to use the brush as is, so I get a clear sense of what it is. And then I can
just one tap type thing rather than
stamp.
Painting.
Think of it like a stamp.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on what the brush is and what I'm doing. For something like this, it would be a stamp. I would just create a blank layer, and let's say, oopsie. Let me see if I can turn everything back on. I probably can't because I messed with everything. So I gotta do it the hard way. Whatever.
Skip the red ones. They'll just kill
it. I merged on top. Should be fine. So anyway, let's say I was messing with this, whatever. I'll just take the whole brush and blah. Let's pick a color or something. Blank layer. I don't know. Let's do that color, whatever. Blank, right? So I'll drop whatever on, and I'll play with the layer to get what I need. All right, opacity, whatever. I'll play with the opacity commands, opacity itself, blend if. I'll play with it like that. I'm not so much going to really mess around with the density of the brush and all the different options that comes with that. Color dynamics, transfer, brush pose, shape dynamics. I'm not really going to mess with that. The reason being is because everybody creates their brushes different. So whatever commands and whatever craziness they put in their brush, if you start adding more, you're just making more of a mess of the brush that they created. So work with the brush. Exactly. So work with the brush blank and then just mess with it as far as the layer goes. And you get what you want.
At the very most, what I would do is change the direction of the brush because, you don't want to tap it over and over again because it gets repetitive. So if you're doing something like a grunge brush, you might want to do it one direction, change the direction, do it again so it looks different. But other than that, it's not a whole lot you need to do with them.
Exactly. And to give you guys an idea to change with the brush, right click this little wheel here, moves the brush a lot of different directions. You see here, here.
Camera shot. Lost that camera. You're taking a beating.
Well, my struggle camera stop.
Yeah, it stopped.
Oh, is it overheating?
I think it did. It looked like it did the other night when we were testing it.
Actually, I think it's the battery this time.
Oh, it's the battery.
No,
nice.
Where's it overheating?
Did you put a fan on it this time?
I actually made an adjustment to where it shouldn't overheat, and it's still overheating.
See, man, might as well just go ahead and get you the Canon R5.
Get out of here with that. Stick with my Sony, son. But anyway, so there you go, guys. Hopefully that was helpful.
Oh, can you show before and after so we can see the
where we went?
Yep.
All right, let me get back into the screen.
Thanks, Mom, by the way, because my mom's watching and she was like, "You gonna show before and after?"
Uh-oh. I did that. Man, get out of here. Clicking on all kinds of stuff. There we go. Everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So real quick, just what I did kind of before and after. So that was pretty much before. And 1, 2, 3 after. All right. So as you notice, we just added a little bit in the color and so forth, and a little bit of brightness and so on. I would honestly probably brighten this a little bit more and play around with some stuff and just kind of get it so it's really reflecting off of her skin. And once again, if I bright brights make dark darks, dark darks make bright brights. So because this is so bright, 9 times out of 10, I would probably darken her more, right? Whether it's using a vignette, whether it's just darkening it using levels. Let's say let's just add a levels and just do it for the heck of it.
One other thing while he's doing this, I would also say, like, a lot of the times I'll just use the light source that I've already created in the image. So what you could think about doing is moving the orb to her other hand. Since the light's already coming from that direction, it will make more sense for the orb to be coming from the same direction your strobe is coming from. So that's something that you can think about as well. Try to use the same light source that you already have in there. If you only have one, put the light emitting thing that you're putting into the image on the same side that that light's coming from. And it makes it a little bit easier to you don't have to work as hard to do the darks and the lights, but you'll have to change the color of all, pretty much all the front of her as well. So it's a trade-off.
Right on, brother. But yeah, so just kind of keep that principle. Anytime that and once again, it doesn't always transcend the same. For instance, can you have fire when it's light outside? Yes. But is it going to make a dramatic, dynamic looking picture? Not necessarily. Nah, so it might make better sense to have it really dark and the fire be the main source of light and be the bright points. Mm-hmm. So those are kind of things you want to play with and so forth. And it automatically gives you a different dramatic look. So as you see here, the before, after. And
knock it way down.
Facts.
So that's about it, guys. Hopefully that was helpful. We did this pretty fast, but you guys get a good idea. This was interesting doing this real time.
Definitely. Yeah, I like this. One other thing I want to say, Dan, I was looking at the image. I want to compliment you on your skin edit. You did a pretty good job with the skin editing beforehand. So
I appreciate it.
Did a good job. Yeah. But yeah. Is there any other questions or
time?
Was that helpful? Is it better?
Yeah, was it helpful?
Like I said, I feel like I'm somewhere, like you said, the consistency. I feel like I'm somewhere around a 75% success rate of, when I try to do these things, bringing the vision onto the screen. So it's just learning, it's building that bag of tricks, learning, okay, hue saturation, the vignette for, moving the light around the image. So it's just about what I found with a lot of this Photoshop stuff is learning a new trick and when to apply it. Oh, I can use so-and-so's method of doing this, or
when to apply it. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and Photoshop's one of those programs that you could be using this thing for 10 years and then somebody comes along and say, have you ever checked out this?
Mm-hmm.
And you find some new little menu or some new little filter that has been there for decades, but you just never have known to look for it there.
Rob will tell you, like I've been doing this for a minute and I'm still learning constantly. There are so many people better than me. I try and learn from them. Even photographers that necessarily aren't on the same skill set or on the same genre or so forth. I still ask, hey man, I would like to learn from you. I like how you did this one thing. How did you do it? Blah, 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 blah. And learn all kinds of new tricks all the time. I was showing Rob how a photographer friend of ours, I learned a new trick in frequency separation that I never thought of trying. Something real simple that was like, I never even thought of that. And saying Rob's song was like, and it's just like that sometimes. So, you never stop learning in this, you never stop growing. I think one of the biggest problems, and I'm pretty sure we've all seen this at some point, photographers kind of get stuck in their bag. Artists, period. Not just photographers. I've seen it in music engineers. I've seen it in producers. I've seen it in music artists, even actors necessarily. People tend to get stuck in their bag. They find something that works for them, and then they just keep trying to milk it for all it's worth, and that's fine. You're making your money, doing your thing, whatever, great. But I think as an artist, period, we all hit a point where it's just like I need more, or I'm not as good as I think, or you see someone else's work and it's how did they do that, and that's where you got to humble yourself and grow, and it's not always easy. The egos of some.
The best part is when you post something up and you're like, man, this is great, this is fire, and then 6 months go by and you look back and you're like, you start realizing it's like, okay, well, at least we're growing, getting better each time. That's the key.
Yeah, it really is. So, I'm trying, like me and everybody else, just keep trying to grow, keep trying to do the thing. Reality Remaining says, right on. Thank you for broadcast. Always best way to learn. Watch others catch up. So, yeah, It's so true, man. Once again, I just got to a point recently. I humbled myself and I said, let me just reach out to people I admire, and even people necessarily that, you know, we do something totally different, but it's, dude, how you do that. Perfect example. Shout out to Ed. Ed ain't watching today, so I'm gonna get on him another day because that's one of my partners right there. So he gonna get cussed out later, but it's all good. But you know, how we shoot, what we do is dramatically different. He shoots very fast. His stuff is for clients and turn around like that, but he shoots supremely clean to a way that I've just never shot before. You know what I mean? I can shoot clean and something straight, but it's like the way him and his partner Atiba do, I just can't do. And it's just, and they know what to do. They know how they can show up. It don't matter where it is. And set up, light, whatever, boom, and the picture's perfect every single time. You know, it might not be necessarily all the crazy, dramatic, and interesting stuff that we do in editing, but it's just super clean photos like that. And their turnaround is so fast that it's just like, yeah, I can't do that. I got to sit for a couple hours to pull that off, or I got to sit and, you know, do a few things, you know, even in a batch edit. It's like, how did you, you know, and it's just, it's, everybody's got different skills, man. Everybody's got different skills.
That's facts. So, I guess to wrap it up, Dan, where can people find you? What's your Instagram? What's your social media? You know, all of that good stuff.
For the most part, I got the Fostel studio shots on Instagrams where I post most of my stuff. I just started the YouTube, which we're kind of experimenting with that for a new way of getting, you know, just trying new information. I've always appreciated the information I got from YouTube. So we're trying, you know, what can I give back to the community? What can I give back to somebody who's in my spot 2 years ago? So kind of experimenting with that. And those are kind of the best spots. I'm still working on getting the online presence as far as like a website and things like that, because we've all pretty much been doing this inside my house. It wasn't only until recently that I started putting stuff out there and trying to integrate, you know, different people into some of the work. So still very new at this process.
Yeah.
I see Trevor's in there. He's gonna be helping me out with website stuff. So to come. But yeah, Instagram right now is probably the best spot to find me.
Cool.
Nice.
Most definitely. Well, everybody check Dan out for sure. What is your Instagram one more time?
Fostel, Fostel studio shots.
Cool. And we'll make sure to put that in the main link and everything for the YouTube and Facebook and everything else and so forth, so everybody can check you out.
Yeah,
and hey man, we appreciate it, bro. Most definitely. And we'll sign off to you. And me and Rob are gonna kind of keep this going and just explain a few more things for the next episode.
Hold on.
All right.
Ooh. All good with everything?
Yeah, she was asking about the YouTube channel on the behind me there. I guess it's in the chat. Somebody's asking about it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, we put your link in the chat now, and we'll everything will be down below. We'll put his Instagram stuff in the down below, you know, on YouTube. So yeah,
sure.
We'll get,
yeah. So guys, check out Dan, and for sure, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you for coming.
Hey, thank you for taking the time, man. Me and Brady, that you just met me and you jumped on. I really appreciate it, bro.
And Robert, apparently I gotta find you because you're only a mile or so from me here. So
we gotta link up. Yeah, Trevor used to shoot out of the studio with me, so yeah, we gotta link.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I saw you were just up at Tedesco working with Danny and up there with the up in where's that at? That's by Plum.
Where's it's way out.
Out past Monroe, yeah.
Speaking about Pittsburgh, I don't know anything about
it. Yeah, we'll definitely talk more.
Go Eagles.
saying Steelers in a different language. I don't understand.
All right, Robert, John, thanks for having me on.
Hey,
take it easy.
We'll catch you guys next round.
All right, 100%. That was cool, man.
Yeah, that was fantastic. So
that was cool.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead.
So next time, man, we're gonna have on Carl M Fashion. Carl isn't on today. He said he's gonna be on. See, man, everybody's fun. That's all right though. We're gonna get more people on. But Carl's awesome. Carl is a heck of a fashion designer. I'm sorry, heck of a fashion photographer.
Nice.
Carl's worked with a few designers that I've worked with in the past, specifically rest in peace, Happy Couture, who's been one of the most amazing designers that I've ever worked with in my life. She used to create these amazing couture pieces. She passed not too long ago from a long bout of battling cancer. And, you know, Carl, we'll talk about that and a whole bunch of other things. Once you see Carl's work, it'll really speak for itself. Like
nice.
The couture pieces and the designers that he works with and the stuff that he creates, he's on point, man. I'm pretty sure you've seen his work before and seen him before. You just probably didn't realize who he was. But yeah, man, he's been in tons and tons of fashion magazines and, you know, all the fashion weeks and all that kind of stuff. And here's the crazy part. We've never met. I've talked to him numerous times. We've been cool, talk all kinds of stuff, but
geez,
man, we gonna work on this. This has never happened before. I've been
Get
on
you
like
a cannon, man,
bro. It's some booty squash right here. Anyway, y'all can hear me. But the point is that there's a lot of good stuff, and we're gonna have a good talk with him. And then the following week, we'll figure it out. I have an idea who we're going to bring on, but we'll see who we want to bring on.
Definitely. No, and we'll line up a lot of different people, man. We're gonna get a good stuff. So for everybody that's here, we really appreciate you guys coming out, taking the time to watch. Hopefully we've given you something that's valuable. Hopefully you learned something. If you have questions, if there's something that we can answer, definitely, you know, subscribe to the channel. You can send us a message on YouTube, or you can go to our Facebook page, which we'll link in the bottom as well. This is the Cre8tive Pit on Facebook as well. We have a community there. We want to help other people grow. And yeah, just, you know, whatever we can do. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, you know, the stuff that every YouTuber must say in order to get more. Hit that like button, and, you know, we appreciate you guys. We're out.
See you guys.
Take it easy, guys.